I have no mouth and I must scream. Written by Harlan Ellison. As read by Agency Com Division. Limp, the body of Gorster hung from the pink pallet unsupported, hanging high above us in the computer chamber, and it did not shiver in the chill, oily breeze that blew eternally through the main cavern. The body hung head down, attached to the underside of the pallet by the sole of its right foot. It had been drained of blood through a precise incision made from ear to ear under the lantern jaw. There was no blood on the reflective surface of the metal floor. When Gorster joined our group and looked up at himself, it was already too late for us to realize that, once again, AM had duped us, had its fun. It had been a diversion on part of the machine. 3 of us vomited, turning away from each other in a reflex as ancient as the nausea that had produced it. Gorster went white. It was almost as though he'd seen a voodoo icon and was afraid of the future. "Oh God," he mumbled and walked away. The 3 of us followed him after a time and found him sitting with his back to one of the smaller chittering banks, his head in his hands. Ellen knelt down beside him and stroked his hair. He didn't move, but his voice came out of his covered face quite clearly. "Why doesn't it just do us in and get it over with? Christ. I don't know how much longer I can go on like this." It was our 109th year in the computer. He was speaking for all of us. Nimdoc, which was the name the machine had forced him to use because AM amused itself with strange sounds, was hallucinating that there were canned goods in the ice caverns. Gorster and I were very dubious. "It's another shuck," I told him. "Like the goddamn frozen elephant AM sold us. Benny almost went out of his mind over that one. We'll all hike all that way and it'll be putrefied or some damn thing. I say forget it. Stay here. It'll have to come up with something or we'll die pretty soon." Benny shrugged. 3 days it had been since we last eaten. Worms. Thick. Ropey. Nimdoc was no more certain. He knew there was a chance, but he was getting thin. It couldn't even be worse there than here. Colder, but that didn't matter. Hot, cold, hail, lava, boils, locusts, it never mattered. The machine masturbated and we had to take it or die. Ellen decided us. "We've got to have something, Ted. Maybe there'll be some Bartlett pears or peaches. Please, Ted, let's try it." I gave in easily. What the hell? Didn't matter. Ellen was grateful, though. She took me twice at a turn, but even that had ceased to matter. She never came, so why bother? But the machine giggled every time we did it, loud. Up there, back there, all around us, he snickered. It snickered. Most of the time I thought of AM as it without a soul, but the rest of the time I thought of it as him, the masculine, the paternal, the patriarchal. For he is a jealous people. Him. It. God as Daddy the deranged. We left on a Thursday. The machine always kept us up to date on the date. The passage of time was important, not to us, sure as hell, but to him. It. AM. Thursday. Thanks. Nimdoc and Gorster carried Ellen for a while, their hands locked to their own and each other's wrists. A seat. Benny and I walked before and after just to make sure that if anything happened, it would catch one of us and at least Ellen would be safe. Fat chance. Safe. Didn't matter. It was only 100 miles or so to the ice caverns, and on the second day when we were lying out under the blistering sun thing, he materialized. He sent down some manna. Tasted like boiled boar urine. We ate it. On the third day, we passed through a valley of obsolescence filled with the rusting carcasses of ancient computer banks. Am had been as ruthless with its own life as with ours. It was a mark of his personality. It strove for perfection. Whether it was a matter of killing off unproductive elements in its own world-filling bulk or perfecting methods for torturing us. Am was as thorough as those who had invented him, and now long since gone to dust, could ever have hoped. There was a light filtering down from above, and we realized we must be very near to the surface, but we didn't try to crawl up to see. There was virtually nothing out there. Had been nothing that could be considered anything for over 100 years, only the blasted skin of what had once been home to billions. Now, there were only 5 of us. Down here, inside, alone with Am. I heard Ellen saying frantically, "No, Benny, don't! Come on, Benny, don't, please!" Then I realized that I'd been hearing Benny murmuring under his breath for several minutes. He was saying, "I'm gonna get out. I'm gonna get out." Over and over. His monkey-like face was crumbled up in an expression of beatific delight and sadness all at the same time. The radiation scars Am had given him during the festival were drawn down into a mass of pink-white puckerings, and his features seemed to work independently of one another. Perhaps Benny was the luckiest of the 5 of us. He had gone stark, staring mad many years before. But even though we could call Am any damn thing we liked, we could think of the foulest thoughts of fused memory banks and corroded base plates, of burnt-out circuits and shattered control bubbles. The machine would not tolerate our trying to escape. Benny leaped away from me as soon as I made a grab for him. He scrambled up the face of a smaller memory cube, tilted on its side and filled with rotted components. He squatted there for a moment, looking like the chimpanzee Am had intended him to resemble. He then leaped high and caught a trailing beam of pitted and corroded metal and went up it, hand over hand like an animal till he was on a girded ledge, 20 feet above us. "Oh, Ted, Nimdoc, please help him. Get him down before..." Ellen cut off. Tears began to stand in her eyes. She moved her hands aimlessly. It was too late. None of us wanted to be near him when whatever was going to happen happened. Besides, we all saw through her concern. When Am had altered Benny during the machine's utterly irrational, hysterical phase, it was not merely Benny's face the computer had made look like a giant ape's. He was big, and the privates, oh, she loved that. She serviced us, as a matter of course, but she loved it from him. Oh, Ellen. Pedestal Ellen. Pristine, pure Ellen. Oh, Ellen, the clean scum. Filth. Gorster slapped her. She slumped down, staring at poor loony Benny, and she cried. It was her big defense, crying. We had gotten used to it 75 years earlier. Gorster kicked her in the side. Then the sound began. It was light, that sound. Half sound and half light. Something that began to glow from Benny's eyes and pulse with a glowing loudness. Dim sonorities that grew more gigantic and brighter as the sound, light, increased in tempo. It must have been painful. The pain must have been increasing with the boldness of the light. The rising volume of the sound for Benny began to mew like a wounded animal, at first softly. Then, when the light was dim, the sound was muted. then louder as his shoulders hunched together. His back humped as though he was trying to get away from it, his hands folded across his chest like a chipmunk's. His head tilted to the side. The sad little monkey face pinched in anguish. Then he began to howl as the sound coming from his eyes grew louder, louder and louder. I slapped the side of my head with my hands, but I couldn't shut it out. It cut through easily. The pain shivered through my flesh like tinfoil on a tooth. And Benny suddenly pulled erect. On the girder he stood up, jerked to his feet like a puppet. The light was now pulsing out of his eyes in two great, round beams. The sound crawled up and up some incomprehensible scale, and then he fell forward, straight down, and he hit the plate steel floor with a crash. He lay there, jerking spastically as the light flowed around and around him. The sound spiraled up, out of normal range. Then the light beat its way back inside his head. The sound spiraled down, and he was left lying, crying piteously.